It's now been 1 week since the Nintendo Direct, and we're here to talk about our feelings on it over the past 7 days, or 8 days, however many days it's actually been. Point is, we've had time to think about it, we've had time to play some of it, namely F-Zero 99, and I want to see how we're all, how we're feeling about it now, what our key takeaways from this Direct were, if we're still as hyped as we were at the time for some of these announcements, or maybe more hyped than we were at the time, and just kind of get like a general feeling for what our thoughts are at this point. So, Jake, let's start off with you. You were on the stream with me, if I remember correctly, for the Direct. How are you feeling now in a general sense, now that we're a week out?
Yeah, I have come down from this Direct, I will say. I think it was, I think it was good. I think there's a lot of like fun games in there that I'm excited to play. But I think when I zoom out and I look at like what Nintendo is doing and their strategy, and we'll get into it, I think I am actually a little disappointed in what I perceive to be the direction that they are going in.
Okay, well, succinct. Yeah. We'll hit on more there, I'm sure, very soon. Tom, how are you feeling now that you had a chance to actually fully review the Direct, rather than watching it in piecemeal at the time?
You're watching a piecemeal, trying to upload things. You know, you gotta be happy there's no drought going into 2024, and I was thinking, why are they showing so many 2024 titles? Part of it might be they don't have Tears of the Kingdom to have their like tent pole for the future anymore. They needed something new, and I kind of, though, even though I can respect that they did a lot of remasters because of the pandemic and stuff like that, I wish there was even more experimental stuff at the end of the life cycle, and we'll go into that more later, but, you know, not too bad, but still could be better. I feel like they're holding a lot of their cards back.
Not too bad, right?
No.
Sorry, I'm sorry. All right, you know, I think I'm about where I'm at actually at the time, because I feel better in some respects and I feel a little less in others, so it's kind of a wash. So I think I gave it an 8 at the time. I'm feeling about the same now, because I think for one, the hype of F-Zero just really helped me, like it really helped make everything better for me. I'm like, okay, that was great. Shadow dropped. You could play it instantly, free, tons of fun, love it, that was great. So I felt really good about that, even more so than I did at the time, though I was excited for it. But I do think, though, looking at the lineup, I think it's surprisingly strong for what could be the Switch's final solo year by itself, as is seemingly the case. But then, you know, I also look at it, I'm like, man, there is a lot of Mario there. Like, it's just Mario, 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 you know, Peach, Wario, Mario, you know, they're all within the same Mario IP, even if they are to some degree different experiences, and then on top of that, you know, a lot of remasters too. So I was, you know, so I guess for me, you know, as one who's grown up, you know, through Mario or through Nintendo as my entire childhood, basically, I've played a lot of these games before. You know, I liked them at the time. I still own them. I can still play them. I've played several of them over the last couple of years. They're still great. So even though I'll love, for instance, revisiting the Thousand Year Door, which looks amazing, that's a great remake. I'm excited for everyone that's going to be brand new to that game. For me, you know, I came down a little bit just because I'm like, you know, it looks great. Once I get past that, it's ultimately the same game I've already played before. Same thing for Mario RPG, and as far as we can tell, at least. And, you know, it's like, I wish there was a little bit more, I think as Thomas suggesting, a little bit more in the way of new experiences. Though we do have some of that, too, with Princess Peach Showtime? Showtime, is it? Yeah, okay, cool. Showtime, yeah, all right. Yeah. So overall, I'm sounding more negative than I think I actually feel, which is still an 8 overall. Like, it didn't blow my mind, but it's actually a surprise. If you played Nintendo consoles in their final year before, this is stellar. This is looking like a stellar way to wrap up, you know, the Switch's final year. Though again, for me, I feel like there's always gonna be some degree of crossplay, so there'll probably be more Switch games to come in the future anyway. But yeah, I guess let's go and get into our key takeaways then. So like, looking at the Direct, what do you take away specifically from it? Like, what lessons do you think us as, you know, viewers and press and customers should take away from it? Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, I think it's that I am feeling a little bit burned by Nintendo's attitude towards remasters and remakes. And even as somebody who has not played Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, I guess as a philosophy, I kind of believe that as we move forward in time, games on the whole, painting with a wide brush here, get better. I tend to think that games improve over time. And when you show me something like this Paper Mario game, which was on the GameCube, there's a large degree to which I'm looking at it, and I know that it was designed where certain sensibilities were more popular or in practice at that period of time, and it has not learned from the past 20 years of video games. It is still that game. And I'm sure that game is great. I'm sure that game is fun. I am sure I'm going to enjoy and like that game. I might even love it. But the fact that, like, I feel Nintendo puts us in this place as consumers where I'm a part of this weird cycle where I go online and I see the Nintendo fans that go, it has been so long since we've gotten a Metroid game. It has been so long since we've gotten a Star Fox game. It has been so long since an F-Zero game, a Paper Mario game. Like, I feel like I see this stuff endlessly, and then they just give you no way of playing this back catalog, and then they put out something like a remaster or a remake, whatever. I think the way Nintendo uses those words are interchangeable, and you know, slaps like full price on it and expects everybody to hip and holler. And it kind of like bugs me. It's getting a little bit under my skin. And I know that people are happy about it. It doesn't bring me joy to say this, but I just look across the aisle a little bit at what like Sony is doing with some of their remasters and remakes, like what Square Enix is doing with some of theirs, and it's a little like disheartening and un-Nintendo-like, I think, to look at these games and not think, how can we reimagine this? How can we think about like how to like provide the experience that this game provided, but also like use some of the lessons that we've learned in the past 20 years to make it even better. That said, if they're never going to give us a way to play that back catalog, maybe this is just the way that they've decided is the way forward for them, because they need to keep making money. But yeah, I mean, Paper Mario, that's on one end of the spectrum, I think, for a lot of people, but I think like Luigi's Mansion 2 speaks to this even better. I like look at that up-res 3DS game and I shake my head and I whack my fingy. I find that embarrassing. Every time I look at a trailer for that game, I'm like, I don't care if you like this. I don't care. It just looks bad. It looks bad. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little strange just how kind of like inconsistent they are in this realm when it comes to remasters, remakes, and you know, wherever they draw the line. I mean, it's interesting that they're specifically calling Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. It's almost to like make it clear, like, this is the same game just in HD now. Like, there's
like literally.
Yeah, we're not.
It's like
we're not redoing things like we are Thousand Year Door. You know, this is just the original game now on your Switch, basically, with some minor other enhancements. You know what, Jake? I get where you're coming from, and my own feelings are very complicated on this, actually. But on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, you know, I want those newer experiences. Like, a reimagining sounds great. But then I think, in my experience, when that has happened, like, you almost always lose something in the process, too. There's, like, these intangible elements of the original version that you just can't recapture, whether it's because of, new development teams, or elements that they think are better may not actually be, or just the fact that even if we're the same developer, they just may not know, like, that by changing one thing, they're kind of, like, removing part of its soul. So that's why I actually kind of don't mind too much these more accurate remasters, remakes, if you will, like Thousand Year Door. Like, I think, you know, like a good example of this is Metroid Prime. That game was basically the original game. It's still running on the same engine, just with massively upgraded visuals, making it more palpable to, you know, modern audiences. So I'm not inherently negative on it for that reason, and I feel like if they want to reimagine it, just make a new sequel. And I think that's what I would ultimately have preferred. Instead of making a Thousand Year Door remake, make a new one. You know, make a sequel to that. You know, make a new Paper Mario, because that's what everyone's been wanting. You know, is well, a return to the classic Paper Mario formula. And I think for a lot of people, they can only see that in the form of a remake of Thousand Year Door, because that's the last thing that we had akin to that, you know? So, but Tom, how do you feel about this whole thing?
Well, with remasters, and sort of Jake was touching on, I think it's too bad they don't do more of the Metroid Zero Mission formula more, where they added some new content onto it, or like some new missions. I think that is an ideal way. You get the main core game, and then you get a little bit more. Like Mario RPG, it's disappointing that you get these new, tougher boss battles at the end. It's like, it's something, but come on, like, you could do a little better than that, I feel. And to me, it's just a way of avoiding risk, because pandemic, make sure they can get these games out for a consistent schedule, they didn't know what it'd be like hearing Jeff Grubb talk about, testing and stuff being really important to Nintendo, not being able to do that as much during it. So these remasters represent less risk in that regard. So, but Paper Mario, on the other hand, like Thousand Year Door, I didn't get the original, and then it's like $1 million to buy now. Yeah. So it's nice there'll be the option there, but at the same time, why are we getting 2 Mario RPGs at the same time? Like, they do this sometimes, and they're getting a streak for a while. It's like, can you spread it out, please?
Yeah. Tom, I really like that point, actually, about, like, there's a way to do it. Because if you throw the word deluxe on these, and you tell me I'm getting a little content package that wasn't there before, then I start to change my tune a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you do something like the Bowser's Fury, you throw that on the 3D world, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, like, I get what we're doing here. But yeah, it's like, I feel like the Mario RPG is another good example. I totally forgot Mario vs. Donkey Kong falls into this bucket as well.
Oh, yes.
And I got to tell you, the longer I look at that game, the more I'm like, my heart is like sinking about it. I just really like, yeah, I find it unenthusiastic, and I think seeing all of these games lined up next to each other, remaster, remake, all the way from the beginning of the year, from Metroid through Pikmin 1 and 2 to now all of these Mario games, it feels like I am directly connecting to Nintendo's business strategy of exactly what Tom said. It doesn't feel like these games were passion projects. It feels like they were panic buttons. And that just doesn't feel great, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it does have that kind of feeling, but I don't know, I don't know why they'd be panicking. Considering they are extremely successful in almost every regard right now, minus the fact that I guess hardware sales, are slowly dropping. But I guess, a couple points. One, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I'm still conflicted on, because on the one hand, I actually think it looks awesome. I like the original, the remake looks good. On the other hand, I don't know why it exists. You have the GBA service right there that has almost no games on it right now. That is a perfect candidate. That game would still hold up fine, minus, the pixelization. I don't know why they are remaking it, and now what kind of sucks is there's no chance of that coming to the NSO service anytime soon, while they have a $50 option available for you to buy, right? Because they're essentially the same game, minus co-op and better graphics. So that is a little weird. Like, Thousand Year Door makes a little bit more sense, but again, that's mostly through Nintendo's neglect. That almost sounds like a Nintendo Direct spin-off. Nintendo neglect.
This is kind of what I'm saying, though, Andre. There's something about this strategy to me that feels a little insidious. Like, where is Super Mario RPG on Nintendo Switch Online? Yeah. It's not there.
Like
because we want you to... Right. And it's like, why is Paper Mario on the GameCube so hard to get and so hard to access? So that we could eventually sell you this HD remaster that we are not even going to use. Like, we're just going to pretend it's a new game and hope everybody's cool about it. Like, it's just, like, I kind of get it just from a business point of view. It doesn't bother me that much, but I think what does bother me is, like, seeing something like, maybe this isn't a fair comparison, but like a Resident Evil 4 remake. And I understand not being like, having love for that original game and feeling like there needs to be, both of these need to exist. But to me, it's like when a remake of a movie happens. Like, I'm glad both exist because I wanna see what that new person, that new angle, 20 years later, the same feelings, the same idea, what they put out there. I just think it's like more interesting to the craft. And there's something about this where I just feel like I'm on the Nintendo like pipeline, the grid right now, and I'm just like going through the factory, Yeah.
Well, hey. Mario and Donkey Kong is about a factory. So.
That's right. It's just like that. I'm a mini. They made me a mini.
Yeah, it's too bad Mario vs. Donkey Kong just isn't the GBA one, but at least at the same time, maybe like they feel they need the 3D graphics to get more like younger players interested in it. Like, I think the gameplay would be good. And let's point out to the Microsoft emails where they're panicking about gaps in the release schedule with the delays. So at least that's not happening. I'll say that. So maybe it's not panic, but maybe it's just like super strategic, but almost like too strategic, where I wish there were more things like F-Zero 99, more new experiences, instead of the feeling of them holding all those back for whatever the next hardware is.
Yeah, I mean, we got to give them some credit. I feel like normally we have a Nintendo Direct in February, and I don't think anybody is going to be like in late January, early February being like, what's coming to the Switch? Nobody's going to be doing that. So that's something, yeah.
I think one of my takeaways from the Direct is that Nintendo really wants to capitalize on the success of the Mario movie. It kind of feels like they had all these Mario projects in the pipeline, ready to go for what I assume they knew would be a success, probably not as big as they ended up being. And that's why we're getting so many Mario games now, you know, because we have, I think there's like 6 or 7 of them. It's a lot. There's a lot of Mario stuff coming. And it does make sense to capitalize on that. It's just like, again, there's not a whole lot of diversity if you're not a Mario fan. Luckily, I am. So it doesn't bother me too much, but even I recognize, like, oh, that's a lot of Mario. They really want to, you know, extract as much value as they can out of that IP in what might be the Switch's waning days.
Well, we got Princess Peach Showtime maybe out of the movie too then, because she was a major character in the movie.
And
so that's a plus.
Where she takes on a much more prominent role than her typical, you know, damsel in distress, or merely as a side character at best. You know, where here she actually is the star of the show. And I know, Jake, you're really excited for this one, right?
Still the highlight of the Direct for me. The game I want the most. I'm so curious about it. I like the gameplay promise of, like, you throw a little costume on, you look different, you have like a new little gameplay thing that you do for a little while, you explore that, and then you move on. Since that game was announced, I've just been like cooking on it in my brain, and I was like, you know what, I think I sold myself on this idea of like, you clear a show, you're done with that costume, you move on to the next one, and you just do it very segmented like that. But now I've been thinking, oh man, it'd be so cool if you like beat the Act 1 boss, and then you're back out in the lobby, and then you do like another one, and then you come back to that world, and maybe there is some like interplay between them. Like, that'd be so fun. Yeah, right now, I think that game is full of possibilities for me. It looks new. It looks like a new genre space for Nintendo, for Peach.
New genres.
And, yeah, new genre for sure. And even just like, there was something so exciting to me about seeing like Peach move around in like a 3D environment. Like, you can go where you want, and just like attacking enemies in a way that like you never see Mario do that.
No.
Like, Mario is not running around, press A to punch. Like, you know, that's not happening.
Not since Mario 64, yeah.
Right. And there's something about that I'm just like, dang, like, this is like speaking to me in a way that I feel like it's got a lot of like Luigi's Mansion, Mario RPG, Paper Mario energy in its presentation, but it's got kind of like this action style to it. And I think that's gonna be a good time. I thought the trailer was good. It was such a great elevation of the mechanics. Like, as you watch that trailer, they turn that heat up, and you're like, oh, dang, okay. You know, so that's definitely the game I'm most excited to see more from after this Direct. I really am enamored with that game right now.
I think turning the heat up was just part of the baking chapter.
The patissier? Yeah,
right.
No, it's awesome, yeah.
You know, it's funny seeing, that game looks amazing. It's so funny seeing going from Detective Peach to Detective Pikachu, and like the graphical disparity there, which is a massive canyon. I don't know. I don't know why they thought having those two in the same Direct would be a good idea. But in any case, I'm glad Princess Peach is here. But that game looks amazing.
On Princess Peach too, it reminded me a bit of, I'm on a bit of a Wario Land kick recently. So Wario did have some different powers and more of some different abilities than Mario. Kind of reminded me a little bit of that vein. But the costumes, the costumes just be one act. I guess that'd be really neat. And in the theater setting, that's something that Nintendo's been doing for years. It's they're pushing it to a new level this time around.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how, if there's any elements of like breaking the fourth wall in the game, maybe like audience participation or things happening around the stage, much as we see in Thousand Year Door as well. So it's interesting we're getting those two games around the same time as well, both slated for next year. So. But yeah, it looks like a really just a fun way of using Peach, and I can't wait. Especially again coming off the strength of the Mario movie, where she's basically just a really strong character. So, Tom, do you have another takeaway from the Direct?
For me in the Direct, there were a lot of indie games, surprisingly. I'm like, is this like a merger of an indie world into it? I don't know if they were trying to fill gaps, but there are a lot of notable ones there that really, it was nice to see. Like Dave the Diver, I hadn't had a chance to try that yet. It had a demo. Demo didn't quite click with me yet. I have to play it a bit more. It's a bit hard to shoot the little tiny fish, but then you're sort of running a sushi restaurant after. You know, hearing games like that. Trombone Champ coming out on Switch with new ways to play it.
It's out. I played it on Switch. Yeah, it's pretty cool using the IR sensor on that thing.
Yeah, and showing the IR sensor, like there were two there's that and WarioWare also used IR sensor, so
Well,
it's kind of neat to actually
7
show
years.
twice in one show, yeah. And Among Us, Welcome to the Fungal, and for me though, one of them, it's kind of like indie game, kind of not. Seeing the new Contra sort of reimagining. This is more of what we've been talking about. It's the original Contra, but they're adding in new enemies. They're kind of changing up the stages. Like, a lot of it's really recognizable. But then other parts are totally new. Like, that is kind of the neat experience, although being made by WayForward, it's going to be hard to make it as good as Contra 4 back on DS in 2007, because that one did have Sean Velasco and Jake Kaufman on it, and they, of course, are now making Shovel Knight games, and they are not at WayForward anymore. But really neat to see that for me, being a Contra fan.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it looked good. So if you pick it up, Tom, we'll have to play co-op together.
Up to 4 players, even.
Hey, there we go. Perfect. All right, I've got another takeaway here. As expected, to the point that we didn't even bring up the possibility at all during our predictions, there was no Switch 2 here. And of course, there's been a lot of smoke surrounding it, as there have been over the years, but it seems like it's really been picking up steam more recently now, or more smoke, I guess. And my takeaway is that Metroid Prime 4 is 1000% a Switch 2 title at this point. Still possibly cross-gen, but 1000% a Switch 2 title. Especially because, Tom, as you mentioned before, they've had Tears of the Kingdom to string us along for years now. Like, oh, look, here's the next big game. You know, stay tuned, it's still coming. It'll be here, and now it's here, it's out, and I've already kind of forgotten about it. And the fact that they're not even positioning Metroid Prime 4 as that next thing yet tells me it's 1000% next-gen hardware. Again, I still think it may work on Switch 1, but when they showcase it, they want to do it in the context of Switch 2.
Yeah, I completely agree. I had this down as well. I kind of think this is the last Nintendo Direct we get pre a Switch 2 reveal. So that's kind of like where I'm operating from. And I agree with you. If you like show Metroid Prime 4 after the Switch 2 reveal, that is a weird position to be in. And just, you know, so I agree. I think it's a cross-gen game. I am curious how they're going to position that, because will it just be a Switch game that, like, when you put it in your Switch 2, it has magic powers and is upgraded? Like, maybe, like, honest to God, like, maybe, like, that could be a thing that they advertise, you know? Or is it like a Switch 2, there's a Switch 2 SKU and a Switch 1 SKU? I don't know. But I 100% agree with you, but I will say that I don't agree that there was no Switch 2 in this presentation.
That's right.
Because there were buttons. We found something, yes, and that is particularly in the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door trailer, you can see that they remastered, or I'm so sorry, remade the UI to represent different color buttons. And what's strange is that they're not the normal white or gray buttons that you typically see on a Switch game. They're buttons that match with the Super Nintendo controller in Japan, the Super Famicom controller. And yeah, and the Switch 2 will have colored buttons. I'm fully prepared to be correct in that point.
I hope it does, because yeah, the change, if you haven't seen Jake's video, go check it out, because the change doesn't make a whole lot of sense otherwise. Not that it couldn't be the case for it just to randomly appear, but it does lend credence, or at least it proposes the idea of the Switch having color buttons. And I think that actually would be neat. I always liked the Super Famicom look. It was a little bit of a bummer we never got that look in the US. And we'll see, Jake. I hope you're right. So,
oh yeah.
All right, it's gotta be. We haven't had them for a while because it seems like too much like a toy, like to people, and trying not to be as cool as other systems. That maybe Nintendo's like, it doesn't matter.
I mean, I think I'm sure that was part of it for the Switch, you know.
Yeah.
And I think now that they've established the Switch as its own thing, that's when now they can get more playful again. Now that they have confidence in the brand, people know what it is, and I don't think they're too concerned about coming across as a child's plaything now. So yeah, I think another idea, another reason for it is just so you can identify it, because I cannot imagine a scenario in which the Switch 2 doesn't largely resemble the current Switch. Like, it's gonna look basically the same probably. So you need some way to make it visibly different, and that's a smart way of doing it, because outside of third-party Joy-Cons, Nintendo has not done it themselves yet, these multicolored buttons, so...
I could also imagine a situation where they're like, it uses the same rails that the Switch 1 currently uses, and it's like, hey, you can use your Joy-Con on the Switch 2, but you can't use your Switch 2 Joy-Con on the Switch 1. How do you know? Bada bing, bada boom, these have colored buttons. And I also think that they could get around it like looking a certain way with the new 3DS did this. There were models that like the buttons were black, but the lettering on them was colored.
Right.
And that was like enough. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways they could do it. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, we're coming off of the transition from, remember, we did the Wii to Wii U thing where everybody knows this, ad nauseum by this point, but like is this a new console or is this an accessory? And I think they have to be like, look at how obvious and different this is. So,
right. Yeah, I do think at the very least, this isn't really its own takeaway, but I think the slate of games we have, which I think is actually still quite impressive given, again, assuming this is the Switch's final year by itself, like it's solid, but it's also like, I forget someone mentioned it earlier, but they are basically safe picks. You have a ton of Mario games, they're almost all going to sell extremely well, and I think this is Nintendo like just kind of like cashing out effectively. It's like, hey, here's a whole bunch of games, they're all going to do well, minimal investment for most of them on our part, besides Peach and maybe Thousand Year Door, and RPG, I suppose. And yeah, here's, hopefully you're happy, we'll be happy with the money we're making, and let's call it a day and get ready for Switch 2,
Listen, if you need any evidence that the Switch's life is wrapping up, just head to the end of the latest Nintendo Direct and watch that first-party sizzle reel. Oh man, I saw that and I was like, Nintendo? You're advertising like Pikmin 1 and 2 to me in this Nintendo Direct right now? Like they were doing the hard, like, look at all of our look at our thriving platform. Like they never do that. So yeah, I thought that was pretty obvious.
Because
I was gonna say quick, that sizzle reel to me is Nintendo trying to say, hey, games, don't worry about it. We got games.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, exactly it. That's exactly like, hey, don't worry. Like, there's still stuff coming, and there is, which is great, especially compared to the dire state of most of Nintendo's consoles' final years or final year, which is usually terrible and has nothing. And there's also, again, some speculation here, but if there is a cross-gen component to the next Switch, which I hope that there is, then that means that they could be sitting on a ton of Switch games that they just can't even show now. Like, they can't really show them without the context of the Switch 2, minus possibly Thousand Year Door, Jake, as we touched on.
That's a good point. I did not think about that, actually. That's an interesting point, that there might be a tier of games that simply need to be held back because it might, like when they show certain games and people are like, is this running on Switch 2? Like maybe that is a whole game that's being played right now and we don't even know. So for that, maybe February Direct, where we are now talking about the Switch 2 that's already been revealed, maybe. It's like now you show that second tier of games, which is really like the Switch's swan song and the beginning of the Switch 2. Yeah.
Right.
For that, you have to consider they have Breath of the Wild to look at, because it was, on Wii U at first, then it came out to Switch, and obviously, there was some performance issues, but maybe these ones are a bigger jump, and they feel that you can't show the game. And then, like, if you have surprises in the gameplay, you got to show those first, but it loses some of that impact compared to showing it on the new hardware, new graphics. That's my guess, and they'll try to hold on to those cards for a better impact with the reveal of it.
I would definitely re-emphasize that point, though, Andre, about, like, for contextually where we are, I am so used to, before the platform does its like relay handoff of the baton, it being like a freaking ghost zone. It being like you are like starving. You're like, please reveal the next console.
Exactly. I don't feel that. So, I have no
not
right.
At all.
Yeah. Which is impressive.
And I think that there is like almost like a different Nintendo energy here especially too when you consider that like they didn't even show Mario Wonder in this thing outside of like 6 seconds of it being in that sizzle reel.
Right.
So I think like months and months ago I reported on somebody from Nintendo being like, we are being very careful and considerate when transitioning to the next console, and I kind of read that at the time and was like, okay, buddy, and now I'm seeing this happen in real time, and I'm like, maybe you are actually. Like, maybe this is all part of the plan. And if that's true, then kind of hats off to them, because even like removed from moving to a next console, typically the September Direct I think kind of sucks. So like, and I thought this was a good one in by that metric. So like, I don't know. If this is what's happening and we're reading these tea leaves correctly, then it is, I think, one of the better performed transitions in this space. Yeah.
Now watch a Switch 2 ends up being 2025, 2026, and there actually is nothing in the Switch's final.
Could you imagine? And we do 8 months of please.
So we know Princess Peach is sometime in March next year, I believe.
Yeah.
Did they give I forget, did they give it a timeline for Thousand Year Door outside of next year? No,
just next year.
So Jake, again, to your point, that could possibly be a Switch 2, launch title, or in that window at least, where hey, works on Switch, looks even better on Switch too. So,
and let me clarify something about that point too. I think a lot of people misunderstood and said that I was that in the Nintendo Direct the game was playing on a Switch 2. That's not at all what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm just saying that there maybe is a mandate within Nintendo where they're like, hey, these are the colors of our buttons in the future, so obviously make your games match those. And I could see myself, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, being a part of some marketing in a future Nintendo Direct where they go, and hey, look, this game is on your Nintendo Switch 2, and when you play it here, it has 4Ks. And, so it's one of those games, and I think it would be in line with those, mandates or whatever you want to call them, those design philosophies when that time comes. So, right. And it would be cool. It would be cool, I think, to have a game like that and have a direct comparison in the future to be and now it's looking extra shiny. That'd be, that's fun. Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of build off all of this and say one of my takeaways from the Direct is that they're still showing support for the Switch, long-term support. We have, they showed off Side Order finally for Splatoon 3. I don't fully know what's going on, but it looks interesting. Got my interest. So that looks great. Yeah, we got teased the new Mario Kart DLC, which is cool. I'm happy with those characters, but also kind of whatever and expected. But then, we get a brand new NSO game in the form of F-Zero 99, seemingly a game that they didn't announce it as being a limited time thing. So they launched a major platform game now for free, platform being NSO, and with seemingly no end date. So that is, again, showing a commitment both to the Switch, to its online service, and assuming that carries over, as Nintendo has themselves said before, F-Zero 99 will be just a great game to continue into the next generation. So yeah, really, everything they're doing about handling seemingly this transition so far, it's on point. They're doing a great job, assuming everything goes to plan as we expected, as we expect the plan might be. So,
on the topic of Side Order, really quick, I watched that trailer back a couple of times recently, and I am not somebody that really likes Splatoon single-player content, and I found that was speaking to me, and I was like, what's going on here? And it's funny, there's damage numbers, which Splatoon doesn't normally do, and I'm a sucker for roguelites and roguelike games, and total sucker. And it actually occurred to me that I think this might do better or be more interesting if they sold it on its own. And I kind of wish it was that. Like a Splatoon roguelite experience that you could buy separately. I do. I kind of wish it was that. So I'm curious how that's going to play out when it's out, if it will be as interesting as I think it is. It visually looked really cool, and I think it started the Direct, I think.
It did,
Yeah, it was I was unexpectedly drawn to it. It seemed like something was happening in the Splatoon 3 space that felt actually original and unique and a different thing for Splatoon to try, which I really appreciated seeing, because I think I've long had this criticism of Splatoon 3 where it has felt a little samey. And I would like to see them take that IP and that brand in different directions. So, so I really like the Side Order.
Yeah, Jake, I'll point on that it was disappointing to hear that it is 2024, but that shows how much effort they're putting into it. And looking different, being more about, say, roguelike, being replayable. These are interesting new things for Splatoon 3, and really putting a lot of effort into something new. Even if it helps them, with more NSO subscriptions or being part of the DLC, I mean, it could be standalone, but I think it's fine to try to support their service. So
yeah. On the subject of NSO, really quick, one of my takeaways I wrote down before we started here was that I think I'm disheartened or just a little disappointed in the Nintendo Switch Online. I don't know what to call it, but virtual console service.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. I'm not sure. Game library, let's say. The way that they approach announcing these games and dripping them out is it's like it's actually gotten, I think, like worse than it might have been a while back, and it feels like there's no enthusiasm behind it, and there like could be it like, and I kind of think it's like a good service too. Like these Game Boy and Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games like really sing on those apps, and I just like, I don't know, to tune into a presentation like this and to not say anything, especially when like a straight up year ago, you announced like some N64, 20 MB ROMs that haven't made it to the service yet. Like, dude, like what a ball drop. It's just disappointing.
Yeah, it's been over a year since Mario Party 3 was announced. I mean, Mario Party 1 and 2 came out basically shortly thereafter. There's been a year-long gap here, which I don't understand, and to not even give us an update on what's going on there. I mean, they'll probably be out soon, do they have to be, because they announced it this year, but still, it's just like confusing, especially when it feels like unfocused, because then you have this amazing announcement in F-Zero 99, which is great, awesome argument for the service, but yeah, then they're kind of dropping the ball on the virtual console side of things, or whatever, particularly, again, when you have cases like Mario vs. Donkey Kong being remade fully, with no sign of that on GBA, and it's just, yeah, it's kind of confusing. Like, what space is this existing in? And yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the game plan is for it now. Like, we have to find out. They have to give us some kind of update soon, because they're almost out of N64 games that they've announced. They have 2 left. So what's next? Why wasn't this a time to, like, I think, like, had they informed us of this just before F-Zero, and then you cap that with, hey, new F-Zero coming, like, that is so hype right there, That would have been such a great way of messaging what your plans are, but...
Well, and the really weird thing is that I fully believe that they have a schedule. Like, they know what's coming out and when it's coming out. I fully believe that. And I guess it's weird to me as a consumer who, like, maybe this is strange, but I really look forward to seeing, like, what the new game added to PlayStation Plus is. Like, I have that service, and I know when it's gonna hit, and I know first Tuesday of the month, I get my new free downloads, and I look forward to that. In the same way that, like, every Wednesday, I look forward to my new comic books coming out. And, like... I think Nintendo's missing something here. Like, you have this service, it should be a thing. Like, we should know when the games are gonna come out, we should know when you're going to announce them, and I should sit there going, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Like, why is that so hard? Like, just, yeah, I don't know.
We need our Wii Channel Wednesday, or whatever it was, right? Like, we need
Was that a thing?
It was a thing, yeah. Every Wednesday, I think, was when they added, there's a whole song based around it now.
Cool.
But not now, it was from ages ago. But yeah, I agree, like, why not have that consistent schedule? Maybe because, I don't know, maybe they're afraid that there's too much hype leading into it then, and people are gonna be disappointed when it's not the thing that they wanted, so they just like to surprise us randomly, but just more annoying. I feel like, I don't know.
I'll argue that maybe they run into more technical challenges than they let on about bringing these old games playing online, and so that's why they just don't know till they're ready. Maybe they're afraid of releasing games now and getting crapped on by everybody for, like, oh, look at the water, that's not good. Or maybe they just know the numbers, and NSO old games, people might play them for a bit, then everyone stops immediately, and they don't really push the service like the other things.
I would love to know, the stats for that
Dude,
service.
would love to know.
Right?
Like, game by game, oh my god, that would be so interesting,
Like GoldenEye, like, we played it, and then it was done. And it's like...
that was such a good time. Remember that? That was
great.
Such a good time. Yeah.
That was a really good time. I really wish, to the broader point of NSO, like, there's still some enhancements they can make. Let us make private lobbies, or, with a publicly accessible ID, so we can easily meet up without having to be friends. It'd be great for streamers too, or let's turn off the freaking borders after all this time. I'm still sick of those NSO borders. Just small, like, little tweaks. And honestly, I wish they would just consolidate all the apps into one, or at least have like, I guess they do have the NSO app, which kind of does that, but that's not great. I don't know. It does feel a little unfocused at the moment. So
why couldn't it be tabs? Why could it not be tabs?
That'd be such a great, right?
And the thing is that there's, like, expansion pack systems, and then there's the normal systems.
Right.
So even if that has to be 2 apps, fine. Like, fine. But you could easily do it in one app where there's, like, one for the expansion pack members and one for the non, and it just takes all those games and puts them in there. I don't know. It's, and the borders triggers me, Andre. I said back in January of this year, no way they keep those borders around by the end of 2023. And now I feel like a big dum-dum, so. God.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I mean, honestly, I kind of wish you could even bring those games out of those apps. Like, if I'm playing
Ooh, that's
Banjo-Kazooie,
smart.
have that on my home menu, you know? But it's just so easy to forget about, like, what all's accessible or what all you've been playing when they're locked away in these apps, especially once that app gets pushed off your front, your feed. Yeah, it's so easy to completely forget about. Like a second shelf, or, I don't know, some way to highlight these games, you know?
Oh, Andre, I really like that Pull 'em app, put 'em on the home screen idea, because it'd be cool if I had like a little, like, on my home screen, like, Pokemon trading card game, boom. Like, and then I press it, I'm in the game. Like, that'd be awesome, actually. Man, Nintendo. That's a good idea. Yeah, I like that a lot. Right. I've got a big juicy takeaway.
Good, let's do it.
All right. I don't know if everybody's gonna agree with me, but I feel this. Smash Brothers is not dead. It is not dead. Smash Ultimate is not dead.
What in this direct would give you that idea, Jake?
The way that they queued up that Sora amiibo, there's just the music that was playing, the presentation. I went, oh my god, we're okay. This is in a Nintendo Direct right now and not in a tweet, because Smash Brothers will be in the next Nintendo Direct in a substantial way. It will. So first off, January of 2024 will be the 25th anniversary of Super Smash Bros. 64. Something is happening. I feel it bubbling underneath the surface. All of the amiibo are out. The next Nintendo console is coming out. It is time to Smash DX this nonsense. All right, Nintendo likes this. They're gonna put all the updates and the DLC on one cartridge, so you don't have to do it. Funny practice that Nintendo does that nobody else does, but if you like go buy a game that's had a bunch of updates off store shelves, chances are it will have all the updates already downloaded on the cartridge, which that's cool. Yeah. So you don't have to like download those or whatever. And this fall, some regions, I don't think it's been announced for America yet, but I do think it's coming. They're going to do the Mario Kart with all the stuff on it, and that's going to be on store shelves. I see no reason why this would not be the case for Smash, especially when you have a new console coming out. And in my heart of hearts, I really think that the way forward from Smash Ultimate is just to keep going. I just don't really. I have a lot of personal ideas for them about how they could keep move that franchise in directions that I think are interesting. But as a consumer product, I think moving on from Ultimate is incredibly hard, and I do think that this is something where you put out a new version, it's got all the stuff in it, everything that you could have bought, and that's square one, and then you go from there. So yeah, I feel it.
I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo foresaw this. Like, they called it Ultimate for a reason, right? Like, where do you go from there? You can't go backward. I mean, you could, but how do you advertise that, right? Without doing a whole different thing. Like, you can't really relaunch Smash with. I mean, Sakurai himself has said it would be difficult to match with Ultimate. By difficult, impossible, I think he said. Something to the effect, what they did in Ultimate. To get that many characters and, contracts signed and all that again. But I wonder if Nintendo can continue to build off that, right? I don't know how their contracts are set up, but they can, just re-release the game and then maybe just keep adding to it. You know, get some more DLC characters in there and make that your platform going ahead. Because I can't really imagine them. I don't know, it's so difficult. I would love for them to just reimagine Smash from the ground up, but I don't think that's what they want to do. And if they can just keep the ball rolling on what Smash is, which most people seem to be happy with, why not go that route if you can?
And I also just think, touching on what was in this Direct again, that Sora amiibo, that contract was not just signed. They didn't just find out they were going to be able to make a Sora amiibo. And now, to me, it's clear that they stretched out these announcements of this amiibo's coming then, and it's going to be sold here, and it's going to be... And I'm like, this is way too coincidental. You're telling me this, they planned, they know exactly when that Sora amiibo's coming out, and you're telling me we're never going to hear about Smash again after that? Yeah, right, dude. They are queuing this up. They know what's going on. Yeah.
Hey, well, the game has a really long tail of sales, so reminding people about Smash again, keeps people buying it. It's interesting if they had a version with all the DLC, then I guess you have a new package that people might be more inclined to buy. But I do feel like if you wanted to hold it until the next console and just make the 4K version of it, and maybe advertise better networking code, that would be a really good way to capitalize on Ultimate again, instead of going sideways, creating that 3D Smash where it would be visibly different.
That's my vision. My vision, Tom, the first thing you said is that like you buy a thing and they say in the Nintendo Direct, it's like, okay, we're announcing the Smash everything together. And it's like, oh, and hey, when we just talked about the Switch 2, there will be benefits. And then you just kind of like leave it at that. You know what I mean? And then you move on. I could totally see Nintendo pulling some nonsense like that, yeah.
This is kind of where I feel like those rumblings of there being, I think, like an upgrade cost associated with games they may already have for 4K or sorry, Switch 2 might make a ton of sense, because I'm thinking now from Nintendo's perspective. The reason, I mean, part of the reason why there's always a new Smash is you're always reselling effectively the same game. I mean, I'm selling it short. Like, every Smash they reinvent, of course, to some degree. Yeah. But, like, you know, largely the same game, but they're selling it to the same consumer base over and over and over while continually growing at the same time. And so, if you allow everyone on Switch to bring Ultimate over to the next one, you know, without mandating a buying a whole new game, you're missing out on a ton of sales. That's why I think if Nintendo can not that I want them to do this, mind you, but it may make sense for Nintendo to have some kind of upgrade cost associated with it to get those better visuals, to get the new characters that they're adding, or whatever it is. I don't know how they're going to do it exactly, but like, I'm just thinking from a business perspective, like they probably would want a new Smash of some kind in order to make money off of it. Otherwise, people could just bring over their existing Smash game, and why bother buying a new one, because there isn't a new one.
Yeah, and I do think that game, just like sitting up on your Switch 2 eShop or whatever, I think that does like 80% of the work for you. And like Tom said, has a long tail. I think people are just going to keep picking up that game down the line. But I think Smash is in like platform territory, where I think Nintendo finally is in this online era where these DLC packages, these subscriptions are starting to really pay off for them in a big way. I have no numbers on this, but I think the Booster Course Pass was very successful for them. I think that maybe even affected their plans going forward. And Mario Kart, we're wrapping that puppy up. Yep. I'm sure they're gonna turn that 8 on its side and it'll just be an infinity. But it's, you know, but I think Smash is ripe for Smash Ultimate, and we're just gonna keep putting toppings on this cheeseburger. It's like, hey, now it has seasons and a battle pass and all this other online stuff that you're kind of like familiar with already, but just baked into this game, now a platform. Yeah.
Jake, could you imagine Sakurai's reaction if he wasn't working on that when that happens? Could you just imagine?
So it'd be crazy.
But on the Mario Kart too, Mario Kart replaced Smash, so now when Mario Kart ends, they're gonna need something to replace Mario Kart in terms of one of their big franchises having new content like every 3 times a year.
That's a good point.
It's so it's so interesting. God, I cannot imagine them continuing with Mario Kart 8. I need that game to be done. I need them to end Mario Kart 8. I'm just sick of it mechanically. I need something new. No!
You're gonna do it, dude. Listen, if they had the guts to turn that 8 on its side and make it into an infinity, I might follow them into the sun. I feel like that'd be so insane.
Oh my goodness. Do we have any
Tour's ending. You have a chance, Andre. You have a chance at a new one.
That's true. That's what I hope. Do we have any other key takeaways that we haven't addressed yet?
Really quick. I think I'm like a little. I think the Switch needs the Switch 2 for third parties. I went into this Direct expecting way more third-party presence, and like I felt like it wasn't really there. And what was there, I was like a little disappointed about. And I feel like we're at that stage right now where we're just like not going to see a lot of third-party stuff on Switch, because I think the big partners are probably aware of the Switch 2 and are getting all their puppies ready to go out when that happens.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, especially after the abysmal Mortal Kombat port. You know,
ooh, forgot about that.
Yeah, we need that Switch 2 to give third-party developers the hardware power to make their games work. Period.
Yeah. And Game Freak as well.
Game Freak. I don't know if Game Freak even knows what to do with that power. They won't matter.
Well, I figure if Game Freak gets that power, we'll have like GameCube quality games.
There we go.
And that'll be awesome. That'll be it. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hey, a quick note, something that we didn't touch on yet, is that the Nintendo Museum will be out next year, and I'm wondering like how deep of a look will we be getting at Nintendo? Will it just be, hey, here are old games, or will we actually get a look into some of the process behind making them? things that we only really got to look at with the Giga Leak. Well, how open will Nintendo be about that is what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opportunity to do something cool. Hopefully it's not just, you know, retail kiosks, effectively.
Yeah.
Here's a Virtual Boy, here's a Game Boy, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of into that. When they showed the overhead shot of the building, it looked like a big, like, kind of a bigger space than I was expecting. And as somebody that's like, I'm like only kind of middle enthused about going to something like Super Nintendo World, I see that museum, and honestly, for me personally, I'm kind of like, I think I might actually want to go to that. So I appreciate the museum, yeah. The way they queued it up, I did not like, though, in that present. It got a lot of hype. It got a moment. Yeah.
All right. I think we covered probably all our key takeaways, I think. Do we have any shout-outs? Is there anything about the Direct you want to shout out? Whether a game or a moment or anything in particular that stood out to you? Whether a highlight or something you didn't like or anything in particular?
Shout out WarioWare Move It. We haven't talked about it at all in this. Yeah. And I just want to say, like, that is, it's a little lame, because I think one of my criticisms of the Switch is like, I've seen this already and I want the next thing, but there isn't a WarioWare game on the Switch that does this, and I think this is what WarioWare is supposed to be. And especially when the Switch as a console is such a good match for this kind of WarioWare game, I'm glad that we're getting one in before the Switch's time is over, because it does feel like a platform kind of perfect for it with the Joy-Con. So shout out Wario. I like WarioWare Move It. I think that will be a good game. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it looks fun. Kind of interesting timing for it, and why it took so long, I don't know. But it does build on, I think, what a lot of people really enjoyed about WarioWare Smooth Moves, which is kind of these marginally more involved mini games because of how you hold the controllers. It adds a neat little extra element to it. And this one has a multiplayer focus, or at least a larger multiplayer component. And I'm really excited for that too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Always love the experimental part at the end of the life cycle. I wish there was even more with the Switch. I'll give a shout out to another code recollection. It's nice that Nintendo's kind of doing the Famicom Club and also Advance Wars, like putting two games in one. And this is maybe more of the remaster that we kind of want, although this is a franchise I didn't really hear about before because it came out in Europe and Japan, so it's missed out in North America. Nice they're still doing it. It seems like it's a type of game they're trying for in the early year lately, but hey, I think a lot of people that played it before are happy about it, so it's that's what I'd like to give a shout out for.
That trailer spoke to me. I like that trailer. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Good. Yeah. I'm gonna do two shout outs here. The one's not necessarily great. First shout out, I've said it before. I won't speak too much to it, but shout out F-Zero 99. I love that game. It's amazing. Go watch our review if you haven't already. Fantastic. Definitely a highlight for me. F-Zero's back. Heck yeah, and it's super fun. Next is a shout out to Mario RPG, because this is the game I grew up with. I loved it. I'm excited for it, but I don't know why it was here. I don't know. Like, they didn't show anything particularly new or really little you could infer that we didn't know before, except for rebattling bosses. And it even got me a little concerned. Well, two reasons. One, they really didn't show anything new. Like, is there anything else going on here besides the trio attacks? And two, the fact that they now have the ability with the timed attacks to inflict splash damage at everyone else. I'm like, is this gonna throw off the balance of the game? Did they rebalance it? Or is it gonna be harder for those who can't time those attacks well? And it just made me start questioning things. Like, are they, hopefully they got it all figured out. So I just hope the game isn't too easy as a result of these new attack abilities, and because that's part of why I like Paper Mario's is they're simple, but you still have to think. You still have to, like, or sorry, it's Mario RPGs, I should say. So.
Yeah, Andre, I'm right there with you. I think, like, the first time they showed Mario RPG, I was so high on it, and then this time they showed it, and I was like, I don't know. Yeah, something about this game, like, the more I see it, the more, like, it's like what you said. That first time we saw it, I feel like we saw everything. Everything we needed to see. And then for them to come back and be like, here's everything again. It was a little bit like, stop doing this. Like, I'm ready to play the game. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about it that I feel like the more I see it, it's maybe it's just the context of all the remasters and stuff.
Yeah,
Maybe
I think that doesn't help, especially when you announce another Mario RPG remaster
so
with a full
weird.
1000 Year Door, which is very weird timing, especially because I like how the Mario RPG remake looks. But then you look at 1000 Year Door, it's like, well, that just looks way better. Like, it just looks way better.
Yeah, does Paper Mario just completely eat Mario RPG's lunch? Does it, like, in the broad scope of things? Do you think most consumers are?
I think for people who played both, I think it would. I haven't looked at the sales. Mario RPG probably did better because GameCube just didn't sell that well compared to SNES. But again, I'm not looking at numbers right now. So I think, yeah, that could be a possible issue. Like, 1000 Year Door has had all the, like, social media buzz for, years now. Like, let's remake this game, So I hope it's not to Mario RPG's detriment, because I actually think that game is still really good. I haven't played it super recently, but I have replayed it a bunch over the years. Still fun, still unique. It actually is probably, strangely enough, the most unique of the entire Mario RPG series now, considering it never got a sequel like all the others. But, regardless, if you're a fan of the Mario RPG style of gameplay, it's a good time to be one, because you got Mario RPG, you got the original, you now have what is arguably the best of the Paper Mario series, and it shows that Nintendo hasn't forgotten that people wanted that style of gameplay. We actually had an interview, Jake, that you reminded me of, with one of the producers of, I think it was Color Splash, and we asked her, are you gonna, like, would you consider remaking 1000 Year Door? And she's like, if people ask for it, yeah, or something to that effect. And here you go.
You want it?
It is funny that there kind of has been this reputation for the Mario RPG series for either being dead or bad for like many years now. Because like that one studio that made the Mario and Luigi games, they like don't exist anymore, I think.
Yeah,
and
Alpha Dream.
Alpha Dream, and then the Paper Mario games don't have a super stellar reputation as of late, and it is kind of interesting to see these two games, which both have excellent reputations, coming out now. It almost makes me wonder if there was a leadership change or some kind of because it's almost a little too like did somebody say, all right, enough is enough with this bad stuff. Give them the good stuff. Like, what is the next new Mario RPG look like? And is it what people want? Yeah.
We'll know if they put in a whole bunch of new characters or it's just Toads right away. So
man, that's gonna be so interesting the first time they show a new one, because I think that is a telltale sign for a lot of people. Yeah.
I'm gonna say on the Mario RPG though, it's kind of, is this what's gonna happen to 1000 Year Door, where we're gonna see it again? It's like, oh, or are they going to be holding back some way better surprises with it? Like, we don't know yet, and because you got the announcement of the remaster, and it's probably just remaster. I hope it goes better route, but we'll see in the next direct.
Yep.
One last thing.
Oh, okay.
It was nice that Captain Falcon could retire from thumbnails. So.
We gotta find a replacement. That's right. Yeah. We have to do a video about this. Yeah, the fact that Captain Falcon's actually back in some form. Is kind of amazing, and I feel like it didn't get the proper credit it deserves, especially, although people seem to come around, including Jake, on F-Zero.
Yeah, big time. Congrats. Yeah. Congrats, F-Zero. Turns out, don't suck.
Just another quick shout out to Princess Peach Showtime, because that game looks awesome, and that is probably one of the biggest highlights of the entire thing, because that is a brand new game, not a remake, not a remaster, doing something new with a beloved character, and I can't wait to see how that game fully ends up. So
yeah, me too.
Imagine if one power was being Rabbit Peach.
Dude, I just keep thinking about stuff that they could do that I'm like, man, what if there was like a racing show or like, a rhythm show or like, like a fighting game. Like there's all sorts of like cool different things that they could do based on like different like musical inspirations or shows. That's every time we talk about that game, I'm just like, oh man, it's like the promise of all of those different worlds is awesome. Because even in something like a Mario Wonder, I'm kind of like, how much do I really care about like what the different worlds' themes are? Like, how much do I really care? It's like it's fine, but not like this. This is cool.
Yeah, but even the Mario Wonder, the themes are still, they still have that kind of like somewhat generic look to them, where it doesn't influence all that much. But in Princess Peach, you're going all in. Like the theming is intrinsically tied to the level design, and that's what's kind of fascinating about it. So I'll be really curious to see how the game actually really plays. But we've only had glimpses of that. We don't really understand the full picture of this thing yet, and or how deep the gameplay of any particular one goes. Like, what exactly are you doing as a detective? And I want to know, especially because I'd rather find out there than in Detective Pikachu, so.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, any other thoughts, or are we done here? All right, I think that's it, everyone. Those are our collection of thoughts based on the Nintendo Direct. They're all over the place, as you can tell, but clearly, you know, it seems like we think at least that the next Nintendo Direct, or at least one in the near future, will have a focus on Switch 2. Maybe that's where we'll finally get Metroid Prime 4. You know, fingers crossed. So, but let us know what you thought of the Direct in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What were your highlights, your lowlights? And are we off point, or are we off base on anything? Let us know, and we'll catch you later, everyone. Bye.